Miles of cotton fabric speed their way through a factory in Pakistan. Old machinery and corrosive chemicals make this work dirty and dangerous. There are hundreds of factories like this in Faisalabad, a fast fashion powerhouse. But there is a heavy price to pay for all this growth.
में सबसे जो बड़ा यहाँ का मसला है वो पीने के साफ पानी का है क्योंकि फैसलाबाद में एक बूंद भी पानी पीने के काबिल नहीं है.
That's because toxic wastewater from factories too often ends up contaminating the water that people use in their homes. And it's causing health issues like hepatitis, cholera and skin conditions. We went to Faisalabad to see the scale of the problem and get a sense of Pakistan's water crisis. Faisalabad's textile factories produce linen and garments for big-name brands around the world. The export market is worth almost $20 billion a year to Pakistan, and much of it goes to the US. This factory operates on a smaller scale. It's washing and dyeing fabric that will end up being transformed into uniforms for Pakistan's school children. Factory manager Salman Ashraf says many smaller factories like this have shut down recently because of increased costs of fuel and raw materials.
हम 80s से ये काम कर रहे हैं तो हम अपना प्रोडक्शन को मैनेज करके और लेबर को मैनेज करके सर्वाइव करने की कोशिश फिलहाल अभी तक कर रहे हैं.
Large quantities of dye, detergent and acid are used to treat the cloth. The chemicals and the exposed machinery make working conditions hazardous. And if the wastewater from factories like this goes untreated, it can pose serious health risks. The city's Water and Sanitation Agency admits that textile factories are a major source of water pollution, and that factories in built-up areas simply don't have the space to properly treat their waste. The manager at this factory told us he does treat his wastewater, but wouldn't allow us to see for ourselves. What we did see was untreated wastewater flowing into an open drain. There are laws in Pakistan prohibiting industrial pollution, but they're not always implemented. Faisalabad is Pakistan's third largest city. Its population has grown by 1 million since 2009, and the fact is water infrastructure has struggled to keep up. Open sewage canals run right past homes in the poorest neighborhoods.
सेम की वजह से अक्सर बच्चों में बीमारियां, बड़ों में सांस की बीमारियां और अक्सर औकात बच्चे जो होते हैं ना वो नाले में गिर जाते हैं, लोगों को नुकसान होता है.
Most industrial and domestic waste is simply dumped into the river system. That includes the Ravi River, which is one of the most polluted on the planet. But the problems really begin when sewage, together with chemicals used in agriculture, overflows or leaks through broken pipes and contaminates the groundwater. It's this water that is pumped into people's homes. A 2021 study found that almost 60% of sources of so-called drinking water in Faisalabad were unfit for drinking purposes. On top of that, seasonal flooding can quickly overwhelm the waterways.
So once the flooding is there, those drains actually overflowed. So that water, contaminated water, also goes into the resident areas, which is also a disaster in the coming future.
These man-made reservoirs are where around 20% of Faisalabad's wastewater ends up.
This is called the Chukera site, which is actually the stabilization ponds here.
Islands of floating plants act as living filters, drawing out the toxins from the water.
These plants' roots have the quality to absorb the heavy metals from the wastewater.
But the water that leaves this site is suitable only for irrigation, not for human consumption. International donors do have projects underway to upgrade the city's water treatment plants and waterways, but for now Faisalabad's residents are paying the price. Mohammed Anwar lives in the shadow of one of Faisalabad's many textile factories. 10 years ago he developed a rash. Doctors told him it was a skin condition called hot tub folliculitis, caused by prolonged exposure to contaminated water.
और एक तो नालों तो साबुन ही नहीं उतर जिस्म चिकना चिकना रहता है.
He uses this salty groundwater from the tap for bathing and washing clothes, although he brushes his teeth with it too. Mohammed's skin condition isn't life-threatening, but it is very uncomfortable.
यहाँ पर और भी हैं जिनको ज़्यादातर तो मैदे की बीमारी होती है.
Across the country, poor water quality is also linked to diseases like typhoid, dysentery, and hepatitis. UNICEF estimates that around 50,000 children under the age of 5 die every year in Pakistan from diarrhea caused by poor water quality. Mohammed buys the water he drinks and cooks with from a local water seller.
वो कैन वाला हमें 30 रुपए की कैन देता है, तो बाकी हम गुजारा करते हैं उसी में, क्योंकि ज़्यादा लेने की गुंजाइश नहीं है. और
According to the city's water authority, around a third of residents rely on deliveries like this. It's groundwater that's pumped from sites close to freshwater canals, which makes it less saline and more drinkable.
मैं तो गर्मियां दे विच लाना है 6 टंकियां 6 लातियां मेरे को होटल वाला सूसा रोड ते भी पाना सब्जी वालियां ते मुख्तलिफ घरां दे विच भी मकसद है कि
It's perhaps no surprise that this water has also been found to have traces of contamination. But more alarming is the fact that 15% of the bottled mineral water consumed in Pakistan is also not fit for purpose. Across town, Masood Textile Mills makes garments for top brands and retailers like Hugo Boss, Calvin Klein and Macy's. This vast complex spins raw cotton into yarn, which is then knitted, dyed, cut and stitched.
When we are producing goods, we have to meet all the compliance standards.
That means investing in their own effluent treatment plant, or ETP, at a cost of around $1.5 million. Treated water then flows into the city's sewers.
Unfortunately, the smaller companies, they don't install those ETP plants. The government should encourage the smaller industries or put up a combined recycling or effluent treatment plants. That would help the environment also.
But many less sophisticated factories simply don't have the money or the space to treat their water. Mohammed's son Asif takes him for an appointment with a dermatologist. He says his condition has started to take a toll on his mental health. Filza Khalid is a consultant dermatologist, and she's seeing more and more patients with conditions caused by water contamination.
The basic root cause of the persisting infections or eczemas in these patients is that the use of the hard water or contaminated water is unavoidable in our society.
Mohammed is prescribed barrier creams to protect his skin. But while he continues to expose himself to the same water supplies, his condition is unlikely to go away.
He is living in the same environment which initiated his condition. So all we can do is to control the disease and ease the life of the patient. If it persists, then it may lead to cancers of the skin. So it will be very miserable to the patient.
Back home, Mohammed applies his cream. He has little choice though, but to continue drinking the same water that may be keeping him sick.